So 151 Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes continue to make history. They keep going up in value, and at this point, they are almost $1,000. So you can see how high the ceiling really is for these PCTBs. They're definitely a collector's item, and I mean, looking at this price point, and 151 is not even 2 years old, you can see, there is a lot of demand for these PCTBs. And you can see for the past few months, it's actually grown pretty exponentially compared to the first, I don't know, 7, 8 months here. Like this was more linear. And you can see once it got to around the $400 or $500 price point, it really started to take off in the past few months. And as you can see now, it's where it's at almost $1,000. So, PCETBs hitting this price point, it just shows where the future could be for some other ones. Hint, hint, Prismatic Evolutions. I'll be talking about that after 151. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. We're about to see $1,000 Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box. Now, I know a lot of people are like, is buying some of these other Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes at $100, $200, $300 a good pickup. Well, obviously it depends on the set, but if it's a good set and also the promo's good, which I'll talk about soon here, yeah, I think it is, because you can see how high the ceiling is. Now, obviously, 151 is a little bit of a different breed of a set. It is extremely popular, and this is why it's gotten this expensive. Now, if you actually look to see how many boxes there are until this hits $1,000, it's literally just like a couple boxes here. Then it hits $1,000 on TCG Player. You can see recent sales has been around 900. There's been one that sold for 970. But you will see, I want to show you guys on eBay, you can buy them for cheaper. Now, at this point, when this PCTB is the most expensive one by far, I think the second most expensive PCTB might be Obsidian Flames. I believe it might be Obsidian Flames. I think Paldea Evolved is a little bit cheaper. I think Obsidian Flames, because that Charmander promo might be the second most expensive. But this is by far the most expensive one. Is this a good investment at this price point? No, I'm not going to tell you that buying this PCTB basically after taxes for $1,000 is a good investment. Now, if the market continues to be strong in a year from now, will these be $1,500, $2,000? Maybe, but you do got to understand at this price point, it is pretty ridiculous. We're talking about like what? 15 to 20 times MSRP. Like obviously MSRP at this point is irrelevant, but it's very expensive. And like I've mentioned every single time I'm talking about 151, it's not even 2 years old yet. So I'm not going to say that this is a good investment at all. I don't really recommend buying this as an investment, but hey, if you want to buy this for your own collection or whatever, I would say if the market seemingly is going to continue to be strong, at least towards the end of the year. I don't really see this getting much cheaper. So if you can find deals on these, I'd probably pick them up. But as an investment, I would say probably not the best one. But as a collection piece, you probably don't want to wait too much longer. Now, 151, it was easy to get a case quantity of these. And as you can see here, there's really no case premium yet for these. And I'll show you on eBay that you can actually get them for cheaper. But you can't see lowest listed case right now. It's for $3,900 and about $50. Now, if we do the math on that, divided by 4, it comes out to $987.50 or $987.50. So really no case premium, but on eBay, as I'll show you here, you can get them for a bit cheaper, loose and by the case. Now I want to show you guys just some of the sales. They aren't selling as high as on TCG Player. You can see recent sales have been $830. You can see a case here sold for around $3,700. One here sold for $850. One here sold for $800. One here sold for $735. One here sold for just under $900, and one here just sold for around $850. So you can see they're not selling for like $900 as we see on TCG Player. And if you even go and look at what's actually available, there are some PCETBs that are selling for about $800. You can see there's one here that I clicked on. I'm pretty sure this was a reputable person, $800 right here. And guys, please don't get scammed. Some people are listing these ETBs as PCTBs, and look here, there's no PCTB. It's just a regular one. And they're just listing it as a Pokemon Center one and pricing it. And if you don't look closely, you might actually just get a normal one. So please don't get scammed. You'll lose about a third of your money because regular ones are worth about $300. But here's the normal one, $850. Here's a PCTB, $850. Here's one for like $815. And here's a loose amount for $3,500, which let's actually do the math on that. What's $3,500? $3,500 divided by 4. That's 875, so actually a little bit more expensive than some of the loose ones. Here, there's 900. So there's a few, as you can see. And here's another one for around 800 that are under TCG Player lowest listed by like $150. So highly would recommend buying from eBay rather than TCG Player. You'll save a lot of money, and you actually get to see the pictures of the PCTB. I will recommend you guys, if you ever do decide to buy on TCG Player for any high value item, ask for pictures, because sometimes they're not in the best condition, and you want to make sure if you're spending a lot of money on this, you're getting them in good condition. Now, I want to show you guys some cases that I found here that were pretty, under TCG Player lowest listed, which was $3,950. You can see there's one here for $3,700. You can see this case. There's some writing on the bottom of it, but other than that, the case looks to be like fully, or pretty much sealed. I guess maybe this is why they're discounting it. It's a little bit torn, so maybe it's not a sealed case anymore. So maybe skip that. But there's one here that I found for a little bit under as well. 3,800. Here's this one. This little one seems to be fine from the pictures. Yeah. And these labels, you can actually read them, unlike some of them where you can't read the label. So those are just a couple of deals that we're able to find on eBay where it's a little bit cheaper than TCG Player. Now, moving on. Every single time I talk about 151 PCTBs and showing you guys the growth of them, I have to talk about Prismatic. Now, yes, is it possible Prismatic Evolutions won't grow the exact same as 151? Very likely, right? They're not going to be exact same replicas of how they're growing. They started off at very different price points in different markets, so it's going to be very different. But just thinking about, okay, Prismatic Evolutions, even though there is a lot of controversy of how good the set is, because you guys hear all the set's terrible and stuff. Let's be honest here, it's going to perform well, right? It's an evolution based set, has 30 whatever SARs, it has God packs, it has all the evolutions. It's going to perform well. So you look at this price point, and I did recommend you guys buying these after restocks, which I did at like $210, $220, which was what I was paying. Now they've gone up to $300. Now looking at 151 in just under 2 years, they've grown to $900+. I'm telling you guys, Prismatic Evolutions, it's already been restocked twice. Is it possible it gets restocked a third time? Anything's possible, right? But it's unlikely. So if you want to hold these for the long term, for at least a few years, I don't think you're going to be upset you paid $300 for this PCTB. And I think, if you will hold that long, buying right now isn't a bad idea. Now, locally, if you can find any deals as well, if you can find them in the mid 200s, if that's even possible at this point, that's a snap buy. At this point, buying them in the low 200s isn't really possible. You should have bought from the restocks, the first one or the second one. You were able to get them in the low 2s, but now you are going to have to pay around $300 for these. But even still, that's not a bad entry point if you're holding for the long term. But looking at how expensive these can get, and 151 in Prismatic Evolutions, they're both very good, very popular, especially sets in Scarlet and Violet. I do think these being restocked a couple times, I feel like if they didn't do that, these would probably be north of $400. But those are just great opportunities to get these PCTBs for a bit under $300, which I was fortunately able to do. And I just think that those are just very obvious buys from those restocks. And as you can see, what's happened the past month, these have continued to go up. Now, Prismatic Evolutions is a bit different with the PCTB cases than 151, because at some point, Prismatic Evolutions, when they had them available for pre-order, they stopped having them available for cases because there was just too many being bought. So they reduced the quantity to 2 in the middle of the pre-order drop, and that's why cases have a premium, a pretty big premium compared to 151, which basically has no premium right now. You can see cases right now are selling for around $1,700 to $1,800, which if you do the math on that, can be anywhere from like $425 to like $450 for each PCTB, which is like could be anywhere from like 40 to 50% more per PCTB. So there is a case premium. I've talked about case premiums before with this. It's very hard to predict where these will go. You're paying 50% more for each PCTB. So in your mind, if you're going to buy a case, you have to think to yourself, is it going to grow more than 50% more than the regular PCTB? If you don't think it will, which obviously who knows how these will grow, then it's probably not worth buying them. But it's up to you guys if you decide the case premium is worth it. Now, one thing I'll say about Prismatic Evolutions PC ETBs that makes me even more bullish on it is the promo. It's an EV, guys. 151, it had the Snorlax promo, which Snorlax is popular and stuff, so that's not that surprising. But 151 as a set, I mean, it was going to get expensive regardless really of the promo. But Prismatic Evolutions being an EV based set, and the promo is literally an EV, and there's even like a small little Pikachu plush, so that maybe could add some value. I don't know, but guys, an EV stamped PC ETB or PC promo. You don't think this is gonna get expensive? It's $300. Like looking at 151, like come on, it's an EV promo. It's gonna be very expensive long term. And that makes me even more bullish. If this was some other Pokemon, then maybe I would not be as bullish on these. But it's an EV. It matches the whole theme. It's going to be a very good, thing to have in the long term. If this was like I said, some other like random promo, which Pokemon sometimes does with ETV promos, they put some random stuff. Then like I said, maybe I won't be as bullish. But guys, EV set, EV promo, it's stamped PC. I mean, come on. Now, another set that is doing pretty well for PCTBs is Paldean Fates. Paldean Fates is pretty expensive. As you can see, it's actually more expensive than Prismatic Evolutions. One reason, obviously, being that it didn't get restocked as heavily as the Prismatic Evolutions. But you can see it's pretty expensive. And even, Paldean Fates, it's, notable to talk about or even mention as a, decent, pretty good set because of the Bubble Mew. But the promo, it's a Mimikyu. Now, Mimikyu is a somewhat popular Pokemon. It's not like, I wouldn't say it's as popular as Eevee, but even it being just Mimikyu, it's performing extremely well. And I just think Prismatic Evolutions is such an obvious one that is going to perform extremely well. So hopefully you guys had bought some during those restocks, but if not, even now buying isn't a bad idea. So just wanted to show you guys that 151 PCTBs are going to be hitting $1,000 here relatively soon. We have sales pretty close to that. And these other ones like Prismatic Evolutions are obvious buys long term, even at this price point. But they were, even more obvious buys from restocks. And any of these other ones, Paldean Fates, I mean, it's probably not going to get restocked. This set is, I believe, over a year old at this point. So Paldean Fates, if you want to invest into it, it's probably not that bad, but I would say the most obvious one right now is Prismatic Evolutions because of the recent restocks, or else I really think prices would be much higher. So that's all I want to talk about here. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.